Pablo Torre, who, if there was an award for Journalist of the Year, he would definitely get it, recently went on Morning Joe, which is a news program of all places. And during his visit on Morning Joe, he was asked to kind of weigh in on, well, the host was essentially asking him, why didn't LeBron decide to go to Cleveland? Like, he thought that would have been a kind of picture perfect ending for this guy to kind of end his career. And Pablo began to essentially unload on him and say, look, LeBron does things for narratives. He's doing all of this as a way to ring chase to catch Michael Jordan, because there's this obsession with these guys.
The debate surrounding superstar legacies has reached another level this summer. From constant arguments about all-time rankings to major player moves dominating the headlines, many basketball fans are growing tired of the endless narrative battles. Every discussion seems to turn into an attempt to defend, protect, or rebuild the reputation of a particular superstar. The bigger question is whether this obsession with controlling individual legacies is starting to distract from what truly matters, what players actually accomplish on the basketball court. Some fans believe the media has become too focused on storytelling rather than honest evaluation. Pablo Torre's comments about LeBron James potentially chasing another championship in Philadelphia have added even more fuel to the debate. Meanwhile, some old-school basketball fans continue to argue that players like Prime Grant Hill and Penny Hardaway possess talent that deserves to be mentioned alongside, or even above, today's biggest stars. Whether you agree or disagree, one thing is certain: the arguments surrounding basketball greatness have never been louder. So drop your opinion in the comments, because it's time for an honest and unfiltered conversation about the current state of basketball media. No matter where you look, television, social media, or sports podcasts, you are constantly surrounded by carefully crafted narratives about superstar players. Fans are repeatedly presented with arguments designed to shape how they view certain careers, accomplishments, and legacies. The amount of twisting, defending, and selective storytelling across modern sports media has become impossible for many fans to ignore. Every bad performance has an explanation, every controversial decision gets a carefully prepared defense, and every superstar debate turns into a battle over narratives instead of basketball. Fans are beginning to push back, questioning whether these media-driven storylines are actually changing the way greatness is judged. And judging by the reaction online, the frustration is only continuing to grow.
You guys know that this NBA media is obsessed with creating narratives around LeBron James, right? And they even did this with his latest move where he decided to join the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to give you guys the practical application of what I'm talking about here. Just yesterday, I responded to a post on X. All right. And I want to put up the post here. It says, reports indicate LeBron James's court vision saw the dysfunction within the Lakers organization and decided to leave. All right. Via Lakers lead. And we all know that this is total nonsense.
Just look at what happened the moment LeBron James decided to leave Los Angeles and sign with the Philadelphia 76ers in free agency. Almost immediately, the media narrative machine kicked into high gear, working overtime to explain the move and shape the public perception around it. Reports began appearing everywhere, from fan accounts to major sports platforms, suggesting that LeBron's basketball intelligence had allowed him to recognize serious problems within the Lakers organization and that leaving was simply the best decision for his career. But critics are not buying that explanation. They argue that there was much more happening behind the scenes than the polished public narrative suggests. According to this perspective, LeBron's camp had made it clear that they expected a maximum-level contract offer that fully reflected his value. Public statements emphasized a desire to compete immediately, while also acknowledging that the Lakers were focused on building for the future. The situation reportedly changed when Rob Pelinka and the Lakers front office decided against committing to a massive long-term extension. With the organization preparing for its future and potentially moving in a different direction, the relationship appeared to reach a turning point. That is when LeBron ultimately chose a new path and took his talents to Philadelphia. And that is exactly why the debate has become so intense. While some people are presenting the move as a calculated basketball decision made to escape organizational dysfunction, others see it much differently. To them, the situation came down to contract expectations, long-term security, and the Lakers' unwillingness to make the financial commitment his camp wanted. As always, the biggest question is not just what happened, but which version of the story fans will ultimately believe.
Not like he needed the money. He certainly is not getting paid the way he was paid throughout his career. Why wouldn't you exit gracefully through Cleveland? Why wouldn't you go back home after the Miami debacle? Why wouldn't you go back home and just have a beautiful bookend? And, you know, he can stand in the stadium, fists raised in the air, saying, "I am Akron."
So Philadelphia was the most shocking of all the choices for the reasons you say. LeBron has a bit of a paradox to him. He is the most narratively sensitive character I've ever seen in modern American sports. He is constantly, I think, aware on some level of the documentary he is starring in, and in fact is a pioneer in sports in terms of having a production company, of being a human television show, and all of that is true on the one hand. And so why does he do this?
Instead of simply reporting the facts, many media personalities seem determined to create dramatic and heroic explanations for every major superstar decision. That is exactly why investigative journalist Pablo Torre drew attention when he appeared on Morning Joe and shared his perspective on LeBron James' latest career move. When asked why LeBron would not simply return to Cleveland and finish his career with a perfect storybook ending, Torre gave a much different interpretation of the situation. He argued that LeBron is one of the most narrative-conscious athletes in modern American sports, constantly aware of how every decision could affect the story surrounding his career and legacy. From that perspective, the move to Philadelphia was not presented as some emotional Hollywood ending or a nostalgic final chapter. Instead, Torre's comments framed it as a calculated basketball decision by a veteran superstar who understands that opportunities to compete for another championship become more limited with time. That interpretation has only added more fuel to the debate. Supporters may see the decision as a smart attempt to put himself in the best possible position to win, while critics view it as another example of a superstar carefully managing both his career and the narrative around his legacy. Either way, the discussion shows just how closely every major move involving LeBron continues to be analyzed.
So Philadelphia was the most shocking of all the choices for the reasons you say. LeBron has a bit of a paradox to him. He is the most narratively sensitive character I've ever seen in modern American sports. He is constantly, I think, aware on some level of the documentary he is starring in, and in fact is a pioneer in sports in terms of having a production company, of being a human television show, and all of that is true on the one hand. And so why does he do this? Right? This is not the ideal ending from any screenwriting perspective. And what it does to me is it asserts LeBron James as a figure for whom his story is not one that can be peer pressured into existence. Like, LeBron shows something that I think is fascinating and also inconvenient, right? This is not a fan base in Philly that was crying out for LeBron, but what he's going to do is say to them, hey, you haven't won a title since 1983.
Pablo Torre used a term that many mainstream sports personalities usually avoid saying directly: ring chasing. He argued that LeBron's decision to join Philadelphia was about pursuing another championship and potentially becoming the first player to win titles with 4 different franchises. In this view, the move was not about nostalgia or a storybook ending. It was about maximizing one final opportunity to add another major achievement to an already historic resume. But why has collecting championships across multiple teams become such an important part of the modern GOAT debate? Critics argue that much of it comes from the constant comparisons to Michael Jordan and his legendary career. Jordan, meanwhile, appears largely removed from today's endless social media arguments. His legacy was built on what he accomplished on the court, and he has little reason to constantly defend his place in basketball history. The debate becomes even stranger when modern discussions start using popularity metrics, social media numbers, or online engagement as evidence of basketball greatness. Those numbers may show a player's global reach, but they cannot replace actual basketball accomplishments. Critics of the modern longevity argument believe that playing at an elite level for an extended period should be respected, while others argue that peak dominance should remain the most important factor when comparing all-time great players. That disagreement has also created a growing conflict between different generations of basketball fans. A recent discussion involving former NBA players Tim Hardaway Sr. and Lindsey Hunter became a major topic after both veterans said they would choose prime Grant Hill or prime Penny Hardaway over LeBron James. Their opinions immediately sparked intense reactions online, with younger fans accusing them of disrespecting modern players and allowing nostalgia to influence their judgment. However, the conflict did not appear overnight. For years, former players and modern media personalities have argued about whether stars from previous eras could succeed in today's NBA. Legends such as Larry Bird, Bob Cousy, and players from Michael Jordan's era have frequently been criticized or mocked during these debates. That has naturally created resentment among retired players who believe their accomplishments are being unfairly dismissed. The result is a basketball culture where both sides are constantly attacking the other. Modern analysts criticize previous generations, while retired players respond by applying their own standards to today's superstars. Once the debate turns into an endless battle between eras, every opinion becomes personal and every disagreement is treated as disrespect. Yet while the basketball world continues arguing about old legacies and manufactured narratives, a new generation is creating its own story. Victor Wembanyama represents a completely different kind of excitement for the future of the league. His combination of size, defensive ability, skill, and willingness to improve has made him one of the most fascinating young players in basketball. Veteran scorer Jamal Crawford has also spoken highly about Wembanyama's ability to learn and process advanced basketball moves. According to Crawford's description, the young star absorbs information at an incredible speed and constantly searches for new ways to improve his game. That relentless approach is what makes his development so intriguing. Instead of spending every day fighting over who belongs above whom on an all-time list, perhaps the most exciting part of basketball is watching the next generation build its own legacy. Wembanyama is still writing the first chapters of his career, and if his dedication continues to match his extraordinary talent, the NBA may soon have an entirely new superstar dominating the conversation.